Well, I had to move this car just to mow around. I've been mowing around it and I wanted to get cleaned out underneath. Now, I sold this once years ago, I think one time. I haven't driven it for like 5 years. It's a 47 Chevy Fleetmaster, you know, the four door. They're actually the first civilian production vehicle after the war. They started making the 47s. So they're really almost identical to the pre-war ones. They didn't change during the war years. World War II. Still the same 216 motor. A slight difference in that during the war they used this motor in some marine application. So it's got weird sized spark plugs. They're very small, very tiny, very hard to find. Otherwise, you know, everything is the same as the pre-war ones. And it's one of the first cars that had an oil filter. It actually uses a Fram oil filter, but it's a canister. You put a filter in, but it was an add-on. Same, it's got windshield washers. There's actually a quart mason jar under there that works off vacuum, that is your windshield washers. This particular car came with a lot of the options, like it's got a spotlight and the Fulton sunshade, that sort of thing. But, you know, after the war, people who, man, they could buy a new car. They hadn't been able to buy cars for a long time. But it's also, I think, the last year that they come with a crank. So if you don't start, you can crank her. Well, I know I used to have a 47 Fleetline, which was the two-door version, and that didn't have the provision for the crank, but the Fleetmaster still had it. And I like that. You know, I like having a manual backup. So this thing, I used to drive it a lot. I used to put on like 100 miles a day driving back and forth to work. But for the last, well, I ran it, like I said, about 5 years ago. I just started up and moved it, you know. And then it sat since then. Well, the other day, when I was going to move it, I just dumped gas in the carburetor and it fired right up. But it only ran a little ways. I got her moved and then she died. Well, here I come to find out I got fuel pump problems. But, you know, they can't be too big a problem with these kind of fuel pumps. It's just one of these poppet valves in there, because there's really just two one-way valves and a diaphragm. Well, that output valve was leaking back, so it wasn't pumping fuel up. But, you know, when I talked about my dislike for tubeless tires the other day, if you let a car sit with tubeless tires on for like a year, they go flat. These things have been sitting, well, there's probably 10 years since there's been air put in these tires. They're still up, but they got tubes in them. They're low, but they're still up. But back when I used to drive this, you know, and I finally, this is the last time I owned a car, so to speak. I don't really, I need pickups. I need more capacity. You know, I can't haul much in a car. But I thought as long as I got this thing, I'd get it fired up again. It'd be good for little trips to town and stuff. You know, I got there again the Pioneer plates on it, so I never have to license it. And the motor has just been gone through not that long ago. I'm sure it's less than 1,000 miles on the motor. But it's the original motor, but I ground the valves and checked the Babbitt clearing, because it's the old Babbitt bearing motor. But I had trouble with the generator. Well, like 7 or 8 years ago, I bought another generator. I just never bothered to put it on. But I got a generator and a brand new regulator, because the regulators are always a problem too. So I'm going to switch them out. But first I got to get my fuel pump running. And then I got to do brake work, of course. Because that's the one thing, you know, these old ones with the .3 in them, you always end up having to go through the brake system. But pretty damn simple, you know. So I'll get this operating again. You got to have the hood propped open because both of my hood springs, the coil springs that hold it open, broke. But it's a good car. It's one of these things that's old enough where it's fun to work on. Now I know something else too when I said about options. Okay, this is back. Chevy used to have a vacuum. You know, it's a 3-speed on the column, but it had a vacuum assist shifter. Well, most of those got taken off because in winter they could be hard. You don't have to move the shift lever very far because when you start moving it, a vacuum cylinder pulls it the rest of the way. So they're very easy to shift. Well, the problem people had, a lot of times if you parked one in winter, when you went to start it, you would have to warm it up with the clutch in because until it got warm, you couldn't get it up enough vacuum to get it out of gear. So a lot of those got disconnected and switched over to the regular linkage, but this has still got the vacuum assist on it. And I went through all that, so it all works. It needs paint, it needs some glass, it needs a lot of odds and ends, but I don't, there's mostly cosmetic stuff. I tend to fix, I don't restore vehicles, I just keep vehicles running. And that's what I'm doing with this, just get it back on the road again, because it could be useful just to run to the neighboring town, so it would be handy. But they're easy to work on. And I'm going to have to check, I'm pretty sure I got some of these fuel pumps that I can salvage one of those little poppet valves out of. Because evidently the diaphragm is good. It's just that little poppet valve leaks by. So she can never pump it up to that sediment bowl. Because she does, if I put fuel in the carburetor, she'll fire up and run that carburetor dry. So not a biggie. But they're fun to work on. You can do these, as long as you got a handful of wrenches along, you can always keep running. Yeah, I think I put a new clutch in this not that long ago. And the back tires were new when I purchased it. Of course, that's like 10 years ago. But at the time, when I used to drive this, I bought it in like 1980. And like I said, I drove it a lot. Because they're a nice car, as long as you aren't in a big hurry, they're a nice car. It'd be good to get this going again. But at that time, back then, it was hard to find 16-inch tires. Very difficult to find. Now, everything's got 16-inch tires on. Of course, they're tubeless, but at least now you can get... And this was, when I was driving it was before we had the internet. So it wasn't so easy to get parts. Now I can get any part I need for this thing. That's the internet is great for that. I can go on eBay. I can pick up anything I need. Because before that, you used to have to find, hopefully, somebody, with an old store. Like I know I bought a voltage regulator one time locally in an old gas station. They happened to have a 6-volt regulator sitting on the shelf. It was just the right one for this. But my mistake at that time, somebody told me, yeah, the thing to do is to run an 8-volt battery. So I put an 8-volt battery in it. Well, that really wasn't the ticket. Yeah, it would start, but it was hard on the regulator, the generator, burned out light bulbs. I think that's what did my old radio in. But one of the reasons I wanted to get this running, at rummage sale, I was able to pick up the actual right radio. My old radio died. But I've got the regular 47 Chevy radio to put in it. And she looks to be in good shape. There ain't much to go wrong. There's a vibrator that goes out of them, but that's where that 8-volt killed her. But I can have a vehicle with tunes. Nothing else I've got. Got a radio in her. Funny thing I'll show you. This is in the cubbyhole. It's been in the cubbyhole all the time. It's one of the little New Testament Bibles that they used to give out to soldiers. It's even signed by Woodrow Wilson. Yeah, I think it was 48 this was put out. But you know, it was a little pocket thing that was supposed to, you know, for emergency. It's funny. Yeah, put your life on the line for that. But I'll get her percolating again. Take her for a cruise. And I probably should buy some WD-40 because I think I got a lot of stuff that's got a little corrosion on it. Though this battery that's in here, it's a Napa battery, one of the commercial grade ones, still holds charge. So all I gotta do is fix my fuel pump and I can hit the road. Well, no, I should probably fix my brakes though. To me, brakes are kind of optional. You just don't go fast. Get a plan.